All right, hello everyone. Welcome to the 1883 Speaker Series. My name is Mike Wozniak and I serve as the Director for the Department of Leadership Development. Over the next 18 minutes and 83 seconds, we'll explore a new lesson in leadership and gain valuable insights to support both our personal and professional growth. For today's speaker, please join me in welcoming the Associate Professor of Teaching and Leadership and the Director of the Master of Science in Teaching and Leadership program, Dr. Laura Link.
Yay! Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out. I mean, what a beautiful day. So thanks for coming out from that beautiful day inside to spend the next 18 minutes and 83 seconds just thinking about leadership, and in particular, exploring my version of how to build leadership karma, and doing that through what I'm calling my elephant era. Now, as Mike mentioned, I get the honor of being an associate professor here at in the College of Education and in the leadership department, and I have the pleasure of having fantastic current, past, aspiring school and district leaders in my care. And if we look at, and we do, the empirical literature, right, on educational leadership theory, if we were to distill that down into like the top 3 leadership lessons, like the top 3 takeaways, it would be these on your screen. And they are important, they are foundational, they are necessary, right, for anyone that leads an ed leadership organization, no doubt. Students, super important, know these things, do these things, but we're not going to talk about these things today. We are going to go back. I'm going to take you back to to an earlier era in my life. I'm going to take you to 1974. And at 1974, I was a kindergartner in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and that is my elementary school. And I started school, believe it or not, at 4 years old. Now, in Florida, in the fall semester, if you turn 5 at any point in that fall semester, they let you start kindergarten. So I was a pretty early kindergartner. And just for a little bit of context, I am one of 7 kids. And as you can see here, I'm pretty sure that my mom was totally fine with getting me out of the house at 4 years old, right? So she could have a little bit more peace and quiet. And this is an actual photo of my family. And we're missing my older brother, Robert, there. But we are here at Flamingo Gardens in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It still exists today. And you can see us hanging out on large flamingos and with citrus fruit, and I figured that would give you kind of the right vibe to capture the context of my family. And this might surprise you. I was 4 years old, yes, when I started kindergarten, but also, when I started kindergarten, I don't know how you can say it. I was short. And I was super, super short. Like epically, something possibly was wrong short. And I don't know if you could see it. See that arrow there? That's me at the end of my bench, at the bench next to my great aunt there. And you can hardly see me. And that was pretty typical. And my mom would dress me, in fact, in my older sister's tops. I don't know why this isn't. In my older sister tops. And this is evidence of me in my shirt dress, one of my hand-me-down tops, right? Now, before I started school, I was really into like art and artistic expression, all creative things. And I most especially loved music. And here I am. You could see me. I don't know if I'm doing this right. Let me go back. I don't know why this isn't quite working. Let me go back. There I am on the drums, right? Just as evidence, right, that I love music. There I am on the drums. And then here I am again on the piano, right? Now, if you look closely, you see me with my hands on the sticks and my hands on the piano, but I wasn't actually really playing these, right? I was the singer in our family band. And so I kind of fashioned myself as like Marie from Donnie and Marie, right? And we had a large family, and I'm pretty sure my mom was thinking that we would be like the next Osmonds, Partridge, Jackson, something like that. And I tell you a fun fact, at 3 years old, I was singing on mall stages. So just again, just a little bit of background as to where I might be coming from with this. But besides music, I really loved fashion. And you could see me here, right, with the bell bottoms and the purse, right, into it. And if you're a 70s or 80s gal like me, I would love to just like get my fashion plates out and get the tops, the shoes, and the bottoms, and just create just an array of different kind of outfits, right, possibilities. Plus, I was really just wearing hand-me-downs all the time, so any kind of fashion, artistic expression was totally my thing. And in kindergarten, my very best friend's name was Taylor. And I would think that for both Taylor and I, we would say that I kind of had style.
She got that James Dean daydream look in her eyes, and she got that red lip classic thing that you like. And when she go crashing down, she comes back every time, 'cause she never goes out of style. She never goes out of style.
That soundtrack is what I heard on that first day of me getting into kindergarten, right? And this is what I envisioned I looked like, right? I had the dress, right? I had the purse, I had the hair, I bounced in. It was everything my older brothers and sisters really said that it would be, right? I had my own desks, my own playgrounds, my own crayons. My teacher was phenomenal. I was looking good, right? I was so happy to tell my mom that I had a great first day. And then the second day was art class. And I have to tell you what this meant for me as a 4-year-old Laura, right? I got the opportunity to be with the smells and the colors and the possibilities that came with this art classroom, right? Construction paper, the smell of tempera paint. I mean, I was into it. I was ready. Day 2 was totally for me. And so, so Taylor and I, we got assigned Miss Counts, true name, facts. Miss Counts was my art teacher. Now, Miss Counts was a little bit younger than my kindergarten teacher, and she was also just like a little bit stiffer. Her hair was a little bit stiffer, and she wore often these stiff corduroy dresses, which is a little perplexing, right, for August in Florida, but nevertheless, right? She also had a lot of rules, lots of rules posted on the wall, procedures, policies, all good, right? It was definitely not going to tamper any excitement I had for that. And the lesson of the day was that we were going to trace animal patterns, because we were going to be creating this kind of class bulletin board with our names on our animal, and it was going to stay up all year, and it was going to be what I'm thinking is kind of like my first art gallery showing. And now, before we got started, right, in particular, Ms. Count said that we were to face the front, right, stay seated, wait patiently until she passed out the patterns, but
Under no circumstances touch the pattern you are given.
yeah, she would give us the directions, right, when it was time for next steps. Okay.
No touching, got it?
Got it. Fine, Miss Counts, right? I can handle this, right? So Miss Counts, she had these patterns in her hand as she was going up to student. And, Taylor and I were ready to go. We had the animals in mind that we wanted, and she was thumbing through them for an exaggerated long time as she was approaching the two of us. I waited patiently, Taylor's waited patiently. We kind of mouthed the animals that we wanted to each other, and we were both like,
Are you ready for it, baby? Let the games begin. Let the games begin. Let the games begin. Ah, baby, let the games begin. Let the games begin. Let the games begin. Are you ready for it?
We were totally ready for it, right? Taylor got the lion, and I got really what I had wanted, right? I got the elephant with the grand trunk, and I tell you what, I was elated. In my mind, this is what I envisioned I was going to be creating, right? It was going to be bejeweled, magnificent, for sure, right? So unmistakably extraordinary that my classmates, my teacher, my brother, who was also in that art room, would see and know that that was totally my creation, right? Laura's creation. Now, I want to show you something. So as Mrs. Counts was passing out the patterns, and we'd heard the rules, definitely, she placed mine like right at the, kind of like the right at the edge of my desk. And for a few seconds, it kind of like teeters, right? And Taylor's looking at me, I'm looking at her. I'm like thinking, what do? I started blowing on it because I didn't want it to fall down, thinking that somehow that would encourage it to stay up, but to no avail. She set it really too close to the edge, and it just simply falls down, right? And I don't know, I was 4 years old. Instinctually, my precious, like, elephant cargo was on the ground. And in my family, if you drop something, you pick it up, right? And plus, I was so short, I was right there anyway. I figured, why not? I'm going to get it, and no big deal, right? I get it. I pick it up. I pause. I hear, everyone hears.
Laura,
And Miss Count's voice just fills the room.
I told you, all of you, not to move a muscle while I passed out the patterns. Take your chair, Laura, to the hallway. You are not allowed to be part of this activity if you are not going to follow the rules.
Yeah, I mean, that's what she told me. I was 4 years old, and I did not yet have the vocabulary to respond, to share with her what I really wanted to say. What I wanted to say was, hey, that was an exception to the rule, right? That was an outlying complication that really deserved a conversation, just not a punishment, right? I looked over at my friend Taylor. I certainly had tears in my eyes, and I could see her facial expression. I was horrified. She was horrified. All the kids in the room, no doubt, were horrified. And really, Taylor and I were just like, this is what we really wanted to say to Miss Counts.
You need to calm down. You're being too loud. And I'm just like, you need to just stop. Like, can you just not step on my gown? You need to calm down.
Yeah, she needed to calm down, right? And what I needed was the opportunity to say, I just picked up something that fell, right? I wasn't breaking anything, but I was 4, and so all I could do was cry and obey, and she had me in that hallway for 40 minutes. I know because there was a clock above me, and a lot of students walked by that hallway because the art room is like in the center of the school. Other kindergarten classes, kids that I knew from the neighborhood walked by, 3rd grade classes walked by, my brother Richie walked by. He saw me kind of shocked, right? Here I am on day 2. I'm ashamed, and I tell you what, I've never forgotten my brother's look to me that particular day. I felt like just like some kind of like crumpled up piece of paper, just lying there. And at the end of class, Miss Counts actually had a student come out and bring me into class. And in front of the whole class, and she tells me and all of us that I would be receiving a 0 F on the elephant assignment, and that I would not be able to create my elephant, not then, not ever, and I would never have my name up on the classroom circus parade for all to see. And that was day 2 of my educational career. And I just felt like, God, with this teacher, I was just feeling like,
Baby, now we got problems, and I don't think we can solve them. You made a really deep cut, and baby, now we got bad blood. Hey!
yeah, we had bad blood, definitely. I did not want to be with that teacher. I did not want to go to school. And for weeks after that, I begged my mom to just let me stay home, right? I was clinging on her legs early at the start of the school, and the principal would have to come get me off my mom's leg, pry me off, and walk me in on Tuesdays, because Tuesdays, well, that was the dreaded art day. And after that, I tell you, I just colored strictly within the lines. Whether it was art class or regular class, I did not raise my hand. I decided after that that art, that expression, was not for me. In particular, I learned that being noticed wasn't safe. And I carried that for years, for 50 plus years now. And as a scholar of K-12 grading that studies that here at the university, I realized a few things, right? Number one, Miss Counts was a terrible grader, right? She scored me on a behavior, a simple movement, totally unrelated to that art lesson or the content that we were supposed to learn, right? She used her grade book as a weapon to punish, and I didn't even get the chance to show what I knew on that assignment, right? Instead, she used her grade book to instill fear, right? To silence me, all of us, to marginalize me that day. And she showed us who the boss was, right? Who the authority in that room was. And she did it that day, and she did it every day. And now I want to pause for a moment because I know we have an array of just amazing PK-12 educators and administrators and those that grow them in that room. And I just want you to know something. Please know this, right? That I am not saying that we should remove student behavioral accountability from our classrooms, because I know that you deal with challenging student behavior that can take away from your ability, right, to teach well and for other students to learn well, no doubt. This is not that. You know, actually, I'm here, you're here, we're being recorded, it is public. If you are a PK-12 teacher or administrator, do you mind just standing just for a moment? Just stand in place, just for a moment. I'd like to take this opportunity publicly to thank you for all that you do for our students on behalf of our entire community every single day. What you do counts. It matters. Education matters. Getting a diploma, getting a degree matters. You change lives. You change students' trajectories. And we just know that we value you and are so grateful for you. And I tell you what, you deserve way more raves than rants these days. So again, help me thank these fabulous PK-12 teachers, right? I also know that you're not Mrs. Counts. You know, Mrs. Counts was practicing a very specific type of anti-leadership. Now, Taylor would probably want to say she was an anti-hero, right? Not the kind that you root for. But you see, Miss Counts, she had authority, she had a title, she certainly had a lot of rules on the wall, and she used every bit of it to make a 4-year-old feel even smaller than she was, right? Invisible. But that's administration without leadership. And I've been thinking about its opposite ever since. You know, what leadership looks like without a title. And you might say that I haven't been quite able to shake this off.
Shake it off, shake it off. He's gonna hate, I'm just gonna shake, 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 shake. Shake it off, oh.
Sorry, Taylor, I can't shake it off. My elephant era was just too memorable, right? It was just too important for me to forget. And now, I do want to make a brief confession before I go any further, because after all of this time, I am still short, okay? I am still small in stature, but since that time, I've had the opportunity to work with tons of groups in schools, lead districts, at the university level, with students at all ages. What an honor. But what I have noticed about the people who are told early by a grade, by a hallway, by a small stature, right? By a room that may not expect them, they pay attention differently. They see people who get overlooked because they probably know what it feels like. And this might be you too. They often lead from alongside, not from above. And I tell you, this is not a disadvantage. In fact, this is a credential, because you don't have to look like a leader, right, to be one. You certainly don't have to be the tallest person in the room or have the loudest voice. You don't have to have the corner office, the top office, the reserved parking spot, though, right, with North Dakota winters, I admit that would be probably pretty cool to have, no doubt. You just have to be willing to practice leadership. And I ask you, let's test this together, shall we? I'm going to read you a list, And when I describe something you have personally done, I want you to shout yes, maybe even clap. And I don't want you to go all North Dakota nice on me. I don't want you to just kind of be polite, right? You know I have a background in education. You saw my family, right? I'm one of 7, and we were hanging out on flamingos, right? I could certainly handle the volume, so let's go, okay? All right. Is this you? You stayed late. Not because anyone asked, but because someone needed help and you were there. Is that you?
Yes.
Is that you?
Yes.
Okay, all right. You noticed someone was struggling and you said something out loud to them directly. Was that you?
Yes.
Oh, I can't hear you, North Dakota. All right, you told the truth in a meeting when it would have been much, much, much easier to stay quiet. Is that you? Yeah, that's you. You remember someone's name, someone who you genuinely didn't expect you to know it. Is that you?
Yes.
You gave feedback that was hard to give because you cared more about someone's growth than your own comfort in that moment. Is that you?
Yes.
You advocated for someone who wasn't in the room. You said their name when they couldn't say it for themselves. Is that you?
Yes.
Okay. You changed your mind out loud when you learned something new in front of people. Is that you? And this one, you picked something up off the floor even when someone told you not to move. Yes. Yes. And you know what? Did I mention a title once? Did I ask if you were the principal, the superintendent, the vice provost, the dean? All of that, all that you just answered yes to, right? That is care-filled leadership in action, in practice. And every single person in this room has already done it. And not all of us have an administrative title, right? And we have a tendency in education, and we see this even in leadership literature, that we conflate two things that are actually very different. Administration is a role, right? Leadership is a practice. And administration is the job somebody gave you. Leadership is the thing that you choose every day with or without permission. And the research is clear that the most effective leaders aren't necessarily at the top of the org chart. Though I'm very biased, right? I certainly believe we have them here at UND, no doubt. But leaders, real leaders, right, are the people that have earned the relational authority, right? They've earned the trust, the credibility, the moral standing that makes others actually want to follow them. And I tell you what, you can have positional authority without relational authority, right? And we have all worked for somebody or people like that, and we all know how that goes.
Maybe got lost in translation. Maybe you asked for too much. My elephant was a masterpiece till you tore it all up. Running scared, I was there. I remember it all too well. All too well.
Exactly, Taylor, right? And on the flip side, you can have relational authority with zero positional authority. That's the professor whose students choose to stay after class is over. That's the staff member that knows all of the faculty members' name and their family's story. That's the new hire, right, that asks questions in the meeting that nobody else would, and it changes the whole direction of the conversation. That is practice leadership. And I want to come back to that elephant one last time. You see, Miss Counts, she had a title, right? She had exquisite organization. She had many printed rules, many policies, many procedures. She certainly had positional authority over those students, over me, right? But what did she choose to do with it, right? She put a 4-year-old in a hallway for 40 minutes for something that fell. So she chose performative optics over feedback. She chose power over building fellowship. She chose to punish rather than teach. She chose to really flex her administrator power, right? To instill compliance so no one took risks. And I tell you, no one felt safe to take risks in her classroom. She showed us that her voice, her title, her authority was priority. And this was not a two-way shared governance collaborative effort with her. Oh no, right? It was her way or the hallway. What she didn't know was that she was not a leader. Leaders, real leaders, help everyone rise, right? They understand genuinely supporting other people rather than just kind of managing their own optics engenders goodwill. It engenders trust. It builds community. It builds real fellowship. But to get there, you have to practice leadership, and you got to do it every single day, not just sometimes when it's convenient or when it benefits you, right? You got to practice it all the time, with or without permission, with or without the title on the door. And you just really proved that, right? With all of those yeses that you shouted, not one of those acts required a job title, right? Not one. That was leadership. It was already yours. It is already yours. So my advice to you is to go pick up the elephant, even if it's a metaphorical one, right? Not because anybody is watching, but not because it's in your job description, but because it fell and you were there and it mattered, right? And really, all these leadership lessons, it really can boil down to something really pretty simple. Leadership is what you put out into the world for other people, right? What you put out for your students, it comes back. What you put out for your team, it comes back. What you put out for your school, for your organization, for others, it comes back to you. The student you stayed late for remembers. The colleague whose name you said in the room when they couldn't say it themselves, they remember. The person you pulled out of the hallway, she remembers. And that is not sentiment. That is how relational authority is built. And as my insightful, talented friend Taylor would say, that is how you build your leadership.
Come as my boyfriend, come as a guide, come as the breeze in my hair on a weekend, come as a relaxing thought, watching with me is not for you, it's not sweet like honey, come as a cat, burning my lamp 'cause it loves me, flexing like a Vegas acrobat, me and come alive like that.
Thank you. And help me thank my Taylor, Ella Henry and Lucy Welsh. Love you, Taylor. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you, Dr. Link. Thanks to all of you for attending. Join us for our final 1883 speaker series of the semester on May 6th, when we welcome Chief Partnership and Philanthropy Officer for Altru Health System, Christy Halgeran. Have a great rest of your week.